Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Nancy Drew, Whispers in the Fog. Chapter 5, The Shadow in the Cypresses. With a loud rustle of wings, a seagull flapped out of the closet. Startled, Nancy and Bess jumped back as the gull flew past them and out the door of the lighthouse. Adrenaline coursed through Nancy's body and she gulped. Yikes, Bess finally cried. I was really scared for a minute, she giggled. When that thing flew out, she stopped for a moment to gasp for more air. It was pretty amazing, Nancy agreed. I had no idea what was making that noise. The gull didn't seem to be injured or anything, Bess added, just locked in. Yeah, Nancy said in her voice slower. And by whom? It didn't seem to be weak or starving, and obviously hadn't been trapped for very long. You're saying it was locked in pretty recently? Bess asked. Maybe very recently, Nancy said, looking around the room. Maybe we should leave, Bess said. After all, the sign did say keep out. Well, we're here. Let's check out the view. Come on, here's the staircase. It took them a while to climb at the top of the tower, the equivalent of six flights of stairs. Nancy felt a little giddy as they wound around. They opened the metal staircase. When they reached the top, they stopped for a minute to catch their breath. Bess started giggling again and couldn't stop. Don't get me started, Nancy said, laughing. When that gull flew out, my heart absolutely stopped, Bess sputtered. Amazing how fast we can move when we're motivated, right? Nancy stepped in from the tiny air landing out in the small room that surrounded the staircase. Someone was in here, though, Nancy said. Probably today. Those smudges were still damp. They're too big to have made by the gull. Did you notice the doorknob? No, what do you mean? The doorknob was clean, Nancy answered. No dust. Somebody had opened it recently. Bess's giggling stopped and a worried frown scrunched over her face. But it could have been anybody, right? Someone just like us? Someone who wanted to see the gorgeous view? Probably, Nancy answered, walking along the worn planks of flooring. The top half of the room was a small wall of windows. Wow, I feel like I can see all the way to Katie's, more than 20 miles away. It's so beautiful, Bess responded. It really was worth the climb. For the first few miles along the shore, rounded hills of golden grasses gently tumbled into the sea. Farther north, the bluffs angled sharply deep down into the blue-green water. Stacks of rock shot up through the waves in formation that reminded Nancy of landscapes in sci-fi movies. Nancy checked her watch. We better get back. The others probably expected us before now. As she turned to go back to the staircase landing, Nancy saw a quick flash of yellow in the corner of her eye. She turned to someone in a yellow rain jacket running from the lighthouse along the jetty rocks. The person seemed sure-footed, at home, racing along the treacherous rocks. Someone was here recently, Bess said, looking over Nancy's shoulder at the person in the flapping yellow jacket. Nancy bolted for the staircase and raced down the winding stairs. Holding tightly to the railing, she wanted her feet to move fast, but she knew one misstep could send her to a free fall. Bess finally reached the bottom of the staircase and the wooden floor. Nancy ran to the lighthouse and pulled. It didn't budge. Bess ran up behind her. Don't tell me, Nancy. Just don't say it. Okay, I won't tell you we're locked in, Nancy said, jiggling the door. Maybe it's just jammed. Come on, give me a shoulder. They stood side by side, their shoulders against the door. They counted 3, and they pushed as hard as they could. The door moved a little, but didn't open. They pushed again, and finally opened enough for them to wiggle through. Outside, a stack of rocks was leaning against the door. Do you think the person who saw running away did this? Bess asked. Probably, Nancy replied. What do you bet he drives a red Mustang? And when they reached their car, the Mustang was gone. Nancy drove quickly to Katie's. By the time they got there, it was late afternoon. They must still be working on the boat, Nancy said when they found the house deserted. She and Bess headed immediately for the Ripper. Where have you been? Ned asked as Nancy and Bess approached the boat. We were about to file a missing persons report. It's been a strange day, Nancy said, sinking into one of the chairs on the deck. She and Bess told George, Ned, and Katie about their trip to the Abalone Motel, their meeting with Andy Jason, their detour of the lighthouse. Let's call Sheriff Harvey. Katie suggested. It sounds as if someone's stalking you, Nancy. I'd rather get the sheriff out of this right now, Nancy said. She took a large gulp of the soda Katie handed her. Why, Nancy? Katie said, what if there's a connection between this guy and the one hassling me? Let's get him locked up and out of our hair. I know what the problem is, Bess offered. We were trespassing in the lighthouse, right? Right, Nancy said. We have no rope of anyone who was following us. It's just a hunch. Okay, I'm going back to the house, Bess said, jumping from the deck chair. Katie, can I use your computer? I'm going to visit the motor vehicles department to see if I can find out whose Mustang that is. Sure, Katie replied. Bess and George left. Ned and Nancy followed Katie below decks to help with the final cleanup. They made their way back to Katie's house. Ned was helping us with big engine repair. Katie told Nancy, now that the cleanup's been finished, I'm hoping we can get some kayaking in tomorrow. Jenna should be getting in any time now, and if I know her, she'll be ready to rumble. When they arrived at the house, they found Bess and George talking to a pretty young woman. She had an athletic body and medium blonde hair that shone with pale streaks from the sun. She spoke fast, her words rippling out of her mouth. Jenna, Katie cried, you made it. She caused the young woman a warm hug. Do you have any trouble finding this place? Not a bit. Your instructions were perfect, as always. Katie introduced everyone. Well, now we're really under the gun, she concluded. Jenna's a champion competitor. Looks like we can't pull off a training session any longer. Speaking of champs, George said, tell them what you found out, Bess. 2 words. Halt Scotto, Bess said triumphantly. The Mustang, Nancy murmured. I knew it. The creep. Ned said through gritted teeth. Hello, Jenna said. You're all talking in code. Please fill in this poor Seattle alien. I'm through talking, Ned said, heading for the door. I'm going to find Scotto and deliver a few threats of my own, and maybe a few punches. I'm coming with you, Katie said. Her long face was flushed, and her graceful jaw clenched. Wait a minute, you two, Nancy called firmly. You can't do that. It would be a huge mistake. But Nancy, Beth said, but we know it was Holt Scotto while he was in the lighthouse. Actually, we only know that his car was parked near the lighthouse. We didn't see the driver close enough to identify. It could have been a woman for all we know. But he threatened you last night, Katie protested. He told me not to mess with him, Nancy said. He followed you down the road, George said. He almost rammed into you. A car like his, Nancy corrected her. I didn't see the license plate until later. This is so frustrating, Katie said. She leaned against the wall and sank slowly to the floor. I know it is, Nancy said, crouching next to Katie. Be patient. We'll keep an eye on him and stay on guard, all of you. The whole town must know who we are by now. Over dinner, Nancy and the others told Jenna who had been happening to Katie. I can't believe it, Jenna said, her large gray blue eyes flashing with anger. Are you sure the boat's okay now? Sure, Ned said. And Katie said she's taking us out tomorrow to an ideal kayak training place. It's pretty rough out there, but it'll make a great workout, Katie said. And it's rough for Jenna, she told the others. She's a real dynamo in the cockpit. The best team alternate we got. Are you sure you have enough rigs for all of us, staff? I do, Katie answered. Ned, George tells me you've done some kayaking lately. A little, Ned said. I've done a lot of whitewater kayaking. Great, Jenna said, flashing him a warm smile. Bess and I have done some river kayaking too, Nancy said, but nothing real heavy, Bess pointed out quickly. Well, I'll do a refresher course for everyone who wants to do it before we go out, Katie said. How about a little biking to prep us for tomorrow? Ned suggested. Good idea, Katie said. Every time I go to the bike on my road, it's free advertising. Nothing like flashing Firestone whale watching and my phone number to remind folks I'm in business, especially those who are fighting me on it. Count me out, Jenna said. I'm too exhausted from the drive. In fact, I think I'll just finish unpacking the car now and crash. See you all tomorrow. You've got the room at the end of the hall, Kitty said. Just put your kayaking gear in the garage. After dinner, Nancy and friends helped Katie clean up. You know, Katie said, I'm really behind on my paperwork. I think I'll take a pass on the bike ride, too, and just stay home to get it done. You guys will be okay without me, won't you? Sure, George said. We'll be fine. Great, Katie said, putting the last clean dish. Bess, the bike you rode yesterday needs cleaning. Take my bike tonight, and everybody change to long pants, sweaters, or jackets. It's getting pretty chilly. Nancy, Ned, Bess, George changed clothes. Then they grabbed the bikes and headed for the bluffs above the sea lion nursery. The sun had just set and the sky was the color of ripe cantaloupe. The fog bank was still hundreds of yards from the shore, a few stars dangling in the sky. They dropped their bikes in the head of the wood steps leading down to the bench. George and Beth scrambled down to the water to check the tide pools before it got dark. Ned and Nancy strolled along the bluff on top of a little path worn by thousands of walkers and bikers before them. Ahead of them, the path led to the cypress grove known as the Cypress Cathedral. The trees were bent, windswept, and battered. Farther on, they formed a tall arch of pale gray trunks and dark green needles. Nancy felt a chill of cool air crisp up from the sea over the bluffs and across the back of her neck. Woo, she said with a shiver. Now I know how those trees feel. Where's your jacket? Ned asked. I thought you brought it. I did. It's with my bike. I didn't realize it would get so chilly so quickly. I'll get it for you, Ned said, loping toward back the bikes. Nancy kept strolling until slowly toward the Cypress Cathedral until she was actually in among the warped and twisted trunks. It became darker the farther she walked. But the air was warmer because the tree served as a windbreak. Finally, she heard Ned's footsteps behind her. Guess what? She said, turning around. I don't need my jacket in here because the footsteps stopped and she couldn't see Ned in the dim light. Ned? It was quiet in the grove. Another reason why they called it a cathedral, Nancy decided. Ned, I know you're here. But he wasn't. No one was. I must be hearing things, Nancy muttered unconvincingly to herself. She knew Ned would not tease her or try to scare her. Not after she'd been all through that day. She started forward again, slowly, her ears strained to hear every possible cracking or twig or shuffling of sandy dirt. Then she heard it again. It was definitely a footstep. Several footsteps. Nancy darted to the left, between two arched cypress trees. As she turned, she saw the silhouette of someone several yards from her. Nancy wove in and out of the tangled grove as fast as she could maneuver until she reached several braided trunks to use for cover. She could hear footsteps, but they were farther away. She was nearly out of breath, but she knew that any noise in this silent place would give her hiding place away. She clasped her hand across her mouth and sniffed out precious dollops of air through her nose. The footsteps stopped, and the sounds of her own breathing and a distant gull's cry were all she could hear. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.